When I was a kid, I remember my dad always walked through the door at precisely 6 o'clock. He would drop his briefcase on the floor and grab my mother. Get a room. Then he'd march by and pat me on the head or use me as a human hat rack, and he would always ask the same old question.
How's school today, sport?
Well, I got beat up again.
Well, that's just fine.
Then he made a beeline for the bar so that he could mix up a pitcher of cocktails. The sound of the ice in the pitcher was like this civilized signal announcing to the world the workday is over. Of course, the problem these days, of course, is that the workday never really is over, ever. But that doesn't mean that I am going to allow the art of the homemade cocktail to slide into obscurity. Too late, you say? Rubbish. If you're willing to master just 3 simple drinks, you will then be in possession of, 80% of all the mixology you will ever need. So belly up to the bar, because although they may not be food, cocktails are most definitely. Dateline 1764. England's King George seeks to make some extra cash by passing the Revenue Act, which places heavy taxes on Madeira, America's favorite alcoholic beverage. Crafty colonists fight back by convening in taverns to create a new country, as well as mixed-up concoctions called cocktails, after the French word cocktail, which means mixed-up concoctions. Within a century, American barmen create hundreds of juleps, toddies, fizzes, sours, and slings, including the daiquiri in Cuba, the mint-julep in Kentucky, or maybe Maryland, and the martini in either California or New York, depending on who you ask. 1920 brings the Volstead Act and Prohibition. Alcohol becomes illegal and drinking becomes more popular than ever. Only now, instead of drinking in bars, most Americans drink their cocktails, especially those based on bathtub gin, at home. After a couple of world wars, vodka invades the party, making many high-octane, low-character drinks available to all. The cocktail finally hits rock bottom in the 1970s when dazed dancers quelched their disco infernos with sickly sweet umbrella drinks. Thankfully, retro hipsters of the 90s discover Sinatra and martinis, and a cocktail renaissance begins. If you drop by your neighborhood bar or tavern, you'll no doubt notice that the boys and girls working behind the bar use a lot of hardware. Happily, I say unto you, most of it you just don't need. First and foremost, you are going to need glasses. Now, there are probably 14 or 15 different types of cocktail glasses, but you only really need 4, 2 stemmed, 2 non-stemmed. We'll start with the old-fashioned glass and the highball glass, which is also called a Collins glass. Now, these glasses were named for specific drinks to go inside of them, but you can use them for anything that is going to be served on the rocks, that is, with ice. You will also require the services of 2 pieces of stemware: the cocktail glass and the champagne flute. Now, these aren't just stemmed to look cool in your hand. They're stemmed because the drinks that are going to go inside of them will not be served on the rocks. And if you were to just hold them in a regular glass, the heat from your hand would heat up the drink, and that's a bad thing. Now, it is not unusual to see cocktail glasses or martini glasses in sizes up to 12 ounces. I think that is just too gosh darn big. A 6-ouncer like this is very civilized, and serving a drink that size, I think, makes you a more responsible host. Next thing you're going to need: ice. The number 1 rule in Cocktail Town is you can never have too much ice. That's because it functions not only as software, but as hardware. Sure, it makes things cold, but it also provides very good agitation when set in motion, kind of like the little steel ball bearing inside the can of spray paint. Of course, when alcohol hits it, it starts to melt, and a little bit of water that melts off of it helps the other ingredients to meld in flavor. Now, since flavor is a pretty big deal when it comes to ice, I usually like to freeze bottled water or filtered water in ice cube trays and then move that to zip-top bags and keep those in my freezer so they won't get funky tasting. If I'm going to have a really big party, I'll either pick up a bag of ice at the local grocery store, or 2 or 3 or 4, or I'll just go old school and chip away at the old 30-pound block, Sharon Stone style. But remember, you can never have too much. 3 more pieces of required hardware. Now, proper proportions are crucial to cocktail concoction, but, typical measuring spoons are really kind of tough to handle. So barkeeps do their dosing with a jigger pony combo. Now, the jigger side holds 1.5 ounces, while the pony holds a mere ounce, which of course is 1/8 of a cup, or 2 tablespoons, or 6 teaspoons, or 16 grams, don't you know? Next on the list, a shaker. you're going to be tempted to buy something that looks like this. After all, it's cute. It's got recipes on the side. But these things have lots of troubles. The lids usually either stick, and when you open them, everything flies out all over the place, or they leak. Of course, the built-in strainer is very, very small. Real bartenders don't use these. What they do use is called a Boston shaker, which is nothing more than a couple of metal cups, generally one that's about 28 ounces and another that's 16. The good stuff goes in here. You clamp this on thusly, hold, and shake your heart out. Then if you're skilled, you can just break the seal and strain the drink out thusly. Very effective system, and of course it's a multitasker. You could do salad dressing like that if you wanted to. Most of us are still going to need an actual strainer, though. You're probably familiar with this one. I played with it when I was a kid. It was in my parents' bar set, and it still appears in just about every bar set that you register for when you get married and that sort of thing. It's called a Hawthorne strainer, and the problem is that little things like mint leaves easily catch in this spring. It's not very efficient. So I like what's called a julep strainer. This is a julep strainer. It looks like a very, very small colander, and it is indeed a multitasker. You could use it for straining really small portions of pasta. That's it. All of the three things that you must have. When mixologists concoct a new cocktail, they often think in terms of bases, modifiers, and accents. The goal is to create a kind of chord. A harmonious chord. The first note, the root of the chord, is provided by the base, and the base is usually a spirit, bourbon, tequila, vodka, gin, what have you. Sometimes it's a wine, but whatever it is, it's there to provide the base of the chord. We'll say middle C. Nice. I mean, it's a good tone, but one note a chord does not make. For that, we require a second player to sing harmony, and that is usually what is called a modifier or a mixer. Now, this is a gigantic category of devices here. We can have seltzer, fortified wines like vermouth, juices, flavored syrups, colas, you name it. And sometimes a drink is just a two-note chord. And if it is, it's called highball. For instance, Scotch and soda is a highball, 2 notes. Rum and Coke, 2 notes. Gin and tonic, no, actually gin and tonic is 3 notes. It is gin, tonic, and an accent in the form of a little bit of lime juice. Now, accents, using accents, is where a bartender can really show his or her stuff. These are generally subtle amounts of very powerful ingredients. Citrus would certainly be a good example. Aromatic bitters, complex flavored, liqueurs, all provide, well, in many cases, the defining characteristic of a drink. Now, sometimes there are 3-note chords, sometimes there are 2, sometimes there are more. For instance, here's what a margarita sounds like. Slow gin fizz? That's pretty cool. Sidecar? Wow, this is fun, but you kind of get the point. The fewer notes, the more complicated the drink, oddly enough. I mean, for instance, if you were to take one little olive, an accent, and drop it into a certain proportion of vermouth, which is a mixer, and gin, a base, you would have something called a martini. And of course, being a male born in the 60s, I can't think martini without thinking of him. Good evening, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Well, Mr. Bond, James Bond, what do you have to drink?
Vodka martini. Shaken, not stirred.
Of course. Step 1 when mixing any cocktail that is going to be served straight up, that is not on the rocks, is to chill this glass. Nothing can suck the life out of a cocktail faster than a warm glass. Now, you can either keep these stashed in your freezer, or you can just add a little ice and let it sit on the side while you do your mixing. Now, I know that Mr. Bond there requested vodka, but I really do believe that a real martini is always built upon gin. Now, for you vodka lovers out there that say you don't like gin, consider this. Gin is vodka with herbs and juniper added. They're made from the same grains, at least most of the time, and via the same processes. So give the real stuff a try. Now, when martini lovers fight, and they do occasionally fight, it's usually about the proportions of the main ingredients, gin and vermouth. 120 years ago, when this drink was invented, or about 120 years ago, it wasn't unusual to see recipes call for 2 parts of gin and 1 part of sweet or Italian vermouth, and that rendered a very, very sweet drink. The pendulum headed the other way eventually. For instance, Winston Churchill was known to refer to the perfect martini as pouring a glassful of cold gin and looking at a bottle of vermouth. I think that's a wee bit on the dry side. My method is pretty dry, but not anywhere near that dry, and the actual amounts are tied into the method itself. So here's how I like to do it. Take the bottom part of your Boston shaker or any large vessel. If you're making a bunch of these, in fact, you would be using a pitcher of some type, and fill that with I don't know, about a cup of ice. There. Now grab your measuring device and pour yourself half a pony, that's half an ounce, of vermouth. And I am indeed using French dry vermouth here. There we go. And slosh. Now what I'm trying to do here is basically coat the ice cubes with vermouth. No reason to put on the lid, there's not that much in there. There. Grab your strainer and pour out any of the vermouth you can get out. That's right. Several seconds of vermouth down the drain. Whatever sticks to the ice is all that is going to go into the drink. Now for the gin. We will go with 2.5 ounces of gin. We're looking for a total drink volume of about 3 ounces here. So that is a pony, which I have here. And you don't have to fill it to the absolute top. There you go. And we will also add to that 1 jigger, which of course is 1.5 ounces. There we go. Perfect. Now, I know that Mr. Bond asked for his drink to be shaken, but you know, when it comes to clear ingredients that are going to be served straight up and that mix easily, I rather stir. If it was, you know, foggy or murky ingredients, I'd probably give them a shake. Or if they were ingredients that were hard to mix together, I would definitely shake them. But there's another reason I want to stir instead of shaking here. Shaking chills a drink far, far colder than stirring. And gin is an aromatic, and it really starts to lose some of its aromatic qualities once it drops below 30. So I think that this is definitely the way to go. Now we will dump our ice. And before we pour this stuff into this thing, we will place our olive. That way the martini actually gets to blend a little bit with the brine, and that's an important step. So we will add our strainer, and there we go. Should be about 3 ounces. We don't want it to be all the way to the top, or it'll be too gosh darn hard to drink. There we go. I'd say that looks pretty good. Let's see what Mr. Bond thinks. Mr. Bond, enjoy your martini, sir.
I will.
Now, if we had substituted a black olive for the green olive, we'd have a Buckeye. If we had used cocktail onions, we'd have a Gibson. A shot of scotch in there would turn that into a smoky martini, and a few drops of the brine from the olive jar would give us a dirty martini. I occasionally like to sneak in a few flakes of smoked sea salt. That gives me a kind of dirty, smoky martini. How is it, sir?
Perfect. What's your secret?
Gin.
You must be joking.
I never joke about my work, 007. Well, a heroic departure. Speaking of heroes, I'm reminded of Frederick Henry, Hemingway's hero in Farewell to Arms, who says of drinking martinis, I had never tasted anything so cool and clean. They made me feel civilized. I like that. Of course, thinking of Hemingway makes me think of Cuba. And thinking of Cuba makes me think of rum. When Christopher Columbus brought sugarcane to Hispaniola on his second trip to the New World in 1493, the grass did very well indeed. Soon, sugar refineries were popping up everywhere. Now, since these operations were relatively inefficient, there was plenty of molasses left over containing lots of sugar, fermentable sugar. It didn't take long for someone to figure out that by inviting the right kind of yeast to the party, a strong liquor could be produced from this molasses, which locals called Kill Devil. And so sugarcane begat rum, and rum begat the infamous slave triangle.
No, it didn't. Most of the molasses from the West Indies ended up in rum distilleries in New England.
Okay, Africa to West Indies to Boston, that's still a triangle.
But most of the African slaves were forced to work on plantations in the South. So why would they be making rum in New England to buy slaves?
Okay, so maybe it was a slave polygon or a parallelogram. I don't know, it was nasty business. Anthropology lady, what are you drinking?
I have a daiquiri, a real daiquiri, and don't bring me one of those neon sissified slushies either.
One of Hemingway's favorites coming right up. Like the martini, a daiquiri is a 3-note chord that is very easy to play incorrectly. It is a drink served straight up, so you're going to want to chill either a champagne flute or a cocktail glass before you get to mixing. Then retrieve the bottom to your Boston shaker, add about a pint of ice, and start laying down the notes. Our first note will be in the form of rum, 2 ounces of rum. And if you want to be a classicist, you will go with light rum, which has not been aged. If you want to jazz up your chord a little bit, like that, you will go with slightly aged golden rum, but you want to avoid spiced rum or dark rum. That tastes like this when it's mixed with the rest of the ingredients. You don't want that. The heart of the daiquiri lies in lime juice. Yes, that is correct. This is bad. Pre-packaged, bottled, frozen, concentrated lime juice will make your daiquiri taste like, I don't know, marinade or salad dressing. You must use fresh limes. Now, I realize that squeezing a lime every time you want to make a drink is a little bit of a pain. So at the beginning of your evening, squeeze a couple and strain them into a squeeze bottle for easy distribution. Now, we just need 1 ounce of this. That's a pony, and just squeeze that right in. There. Now, last step is we need some sugar. A teaspoon of sugar. Yes, this is also a very bad thing. Anybody that's ever tried to sweeten a glass of iced tea knows that sugar is not going to dissolve thoroughly in cold liquid. So you are going to use 1/2 ounce, it's half a pony, of syrup. And it's called simple for a lot of reasons, especially because it's really simple to make. Simply combine 2 cups of sugar with a cup of water and bring them to a boil over high heat, stirring often. Now, when it reaches a boil, turn down the heat to a simmer and let it cook for 3 to 5 minutes. Now, this process will literally break apart some of the sucrose molecules into their component fructose and glucoses. This is called an invert sugar. It will resist crystallization and is actually sweeter than the original sugar. The syrup goes into our mixture, and it is time to shake. Yes, I do shake a daiquiri because it involves ingredients that are both cloudy and viscous. Now, when shaking, don't do this. Number 1, it makes you look like a jerk. Number 2, it doesn't provide enough contact between the rocks and the liquid. Shake sideways, like Dick Powell did in The Thin Man. There, you look very cool doing that. After a few shakes, kind of give it a squeeze to break the vacuum and strain thusly. Oh, have to get rid of that, of course. This time, instead of using an actual strainer, I'll just use the miracle of the Boston shaker itself. Perfect. Nice and frothy, a little smoky and cloudy, and perfect. Your daiquiri, madam.
Viva la revolution.
You know, some of the oldest cocktails there is was born at the hands of apothecaries who used to grind up herbs and spices and roots and whatnot as medicine, and they'd add a little bit of sweet liquor to, you know, make the medicine go down a little easier. Well, I don't know if mint juleps was born that way, but I do know they are good for what ails you. If what ails you happens to be the hot old sun in a 3-piece suit in the middle of summertime, come on in the house, we'll make us up some. All right, here we go. Whew. Gracious, but it is hot out there. Now, I gotta tell you, when Southern gentlemen come to fisticuffs about making mint juleps, and it is known to happen, they're not arguing about what goes in one. Lord, everybody knows that. What they're arguing about is how you go about putting one together. Now, this is how I do it, and if you don't like it, you can write your congressman or something. I know I just don't care a little bit. Anyway, here we go. You're gonna need a vessel. This is mine, a julep cup from college. It's pretty, but we're not going to use that today. We want you folks to be able to see. So we're just going to use a plain old-fashioned glass. And we're going to start with a little bit of agricultural product. We've got 10, not 9 or 11, but 10 just beautiful little mint leaves. They're going to go right in there like that. And we'll add a little sugar on top of that. And we'll add 1 teaspoon plus a 1/2 teaspoon of fine sugar. That's right, fine. No, you don't buy it, you make it. You just put some regular old sugar in your blender and hit the go button, and in a couple of seconds, you got fine sugar. Buy it, Lordy, I don't know. Here we go. Now, we do need to do some muddling. I got my muddler right here. This here's a muddler, and it looks like if you was to have like a junior pygmy baseball team, this is what they'd use for bat. Batter up. But actually, it's a very powerful culinary multitasker, and this is how you use it. You just start grinding that sugar right into them leaves. Now, what we're doing is we're using the abrasive power of this sugar to just cut that mint to ribbons and release its minty goodness so that we can, you know, imbibe of it later. Anyway, remember this. Lackluster muddling leads to lackluster juleps. Don't let that happen to you. Do you hear me? I know you do. I know you do. All right, now this looks good. Now, when the view in the bottom of your glass looks like that, you know that you're done muddling. Now, we're going to loosen that up with just a little shot from the old seltzer siphon. This ain't nothing but branch water, all bubbled up with one of these fancy CO2 things. It's a lot tastier than club soda. And besides, with club soda, you can't do anything like that. I'm sorry. It just went off. Here, let me get that off for you. It's just take a minute. I'm sure sorry about that. Well, good as new. I'll be sure to keep the safety on that thing next time. Come on, let's finish this drink now. I'm just going to give this a little squirt of this. Yeah, just enough to loosen that paste up and get our muddler cleaned off. Don't want a dirty muddler hanging around the kitchen now, do you? Here we go with some ice. We're going to go about 3/4 up to the top with good, clean, flavorful ice. Now, the whiskey. Bourbon whiskey. We're going to go with 2½ ounces. That's 1 jigger plus 1 pony. Yeah. Now we're going to top that off with another bit of squirting from our seltzer bottle. We'll give it just a couple of stirs. There you go. And there we got ourselves a fine mint julep. Just a little bit of garnish, you know, or not. Don't much matter. Anyway, I'm going to go back out on the porch and enjoy my beverage. We'll see you next time on, what is it? Good Eats. That's it. That's a funny name, I swear.